Hi there, everyone! Today we are going to take a look at Codename Sailor V. This is the 2-volume prequel series to Sailor Moon by the creator of Sailor Moon herself, Naoko Takeuchi. I'm going to tackle both reviews, the reviews for both volumes in this video, but if you wish to see a review for each volume individually, I have that up on Goodreads for you to check out. So for anyone who is familiar with the main manga series Sailor Moon, or the 90s anime, or the newer anime adaptation Sailor Moon Crystal, you know there are 5 Sailor Guardians in that series: Sailor Moon, Sailor Mercury, Sailor Mars, Sailor Jupiter, and Sailor Venus. This prequel takes place roughly about a year and a half before that series begins, and the only one you actually follow is Sailor Venus, who acts primarily under the codename of Sailor V, hence the title of the manga. Sailor Venus was the first of them to awaken. When you read the manga or you see Sailor Moon Crystal, you know that she had acted on her own as a guardian before the other ones even came close to awakening. So this series is you reading what she went through prior to meeting the other guardians. At the start of the series, Minako Ano, who is the civilian identity of Sailor Venus, she is 13 years old, she lives in Tokyo, Japan, and she meets a talking cat named Artemis, the white cat, who gives her a special magical pen that, when the right phrase is used, she transforms into the heroine, Sailor V, or Sailor Venus. She identifies as both throughout the series. It is Sailor V's duty to fight the villainous organization known as the Dark Agency, whose goal is to collect human energy for some unseen higher power, regardless of the cost. There are quite a few different methods the Dark Agency uses in order to collect this energy. That includes seducing young women, making fake pop music idols, video games, fattening people with chocolate, inciting gang violence, like the list goes on. You know, Sailor Venus and Artemis are guided along occasionally by an unseen entity known only as Boss. We don't actually see who this person is, but they interact with Boss via Mina's magical pen, as well as through the command consoles in the Hidden Command Center underneath the Crown video game center. It's never actually officially confirmed who Boss actually is. I do have my suspicions as someone who has read the majority of the series, but I'm not going to state those here because it could potentially be a spoiler, and the point of this is to be a spoiler-free review. So most of the chapters in this manga are episodic. It's just one thing from another, a monster of the day type thing. There's a few of these monsters that are connected to one another. Some of them are siblings of another one. The majority of them end up dying in their first appearance as well, which is also very typical of the monster of the day type thing. And they all, in some way or another, report to a mysterious superior, a man known only as Danburite. Now, while most of the chapters of the manga focus on these monsters of the day that Sailor V has to defeat, starting in Volume 2, you do get a somewhat recurring ally for Sailor V, who is known as Phantom Ace. He is essentially the Tuxedo Mask type character, and he carries through through him there is a thread that kind of trails into the rest, the end of the prequel series. So it's not strictly episodic at that point, and then there's lots of allusions to who he actually is. As someone who has been a fan of Sailor Moon for years and years and years, I remember back when I was younger and when Tokyo Pop used to have the license for the original run of the English Sailor Moon manga. And I remember learning about Codename Sailor V and being very upset about not being able to read it. I mean, it's not an essential read, per se. After having read the series multiple times, I would say it's it's a good series to read if you want to get a greater understanding of where Sailor Venus is at when she is introduced in the mainline Sailor Moon series. Because when she first comes in, she's comes across as very, very mature. You can tell there's a lot of stuff that she's been through, and I don't know about anyone else, but I was always curious about that. So I really like how this kind of fills that in. And if you know, if you're familiar with the origin of the 4 inner guardians of the Sailor Guardian group, there is a particular reason why she was the first one to awaken, which again is a minor spoiler, so I'm not going to talk about that in any detail here. Personally, out of all the Sailor Guardians in the Sailor Moon series as a whole, Sailor Venus has never really been a favorite of mine. That honor, for me at least, goes to the 4 outer guardians, Saturn, Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, in that exact order. But I felt that reading this series did give me a greater appreciation of Sailor Venus as a character. There's not a whole lot of character development in this series. Most of it is reserved specifically for Minako herself. But personally, I was okay with that, because the fact that this prequel series is based around her, I was expecting the majority of the character development to be her. There's a little bit of development for some of the more minor characters. Phantom Ace gets a little bit of development as well for the time that he's in the series. I think one of the best parts about this series was that I got to see how Mina decided on how to deal with certain situations by herself. She did have times where she had to get kind of a bit of a push from Artemis or Boss, but once she's a character that once she sets her mind to something, she sticks with it to the very end, no matter how rough it is. That being said, the episodic format that this manga falls into, it's not going to be for everybody. For me, I was okay with it because I grew up on the 90s anime, and a lot of that is very episodic and like gradually develops things over time. Which is a partial consequence of that series having been developed while the manga was, the main Sailor Moon manga was still going. So I'm used to that, but if you're looking for something that has a lot more plot and character development, you're probably not going to like the series as much as the main Sailor Moon series. Just because of the fact that Mina being the sole focus and the Dark Agency being the sole villain focus. There's, I guess you could say, not as much there, I suppose is how I would say it. Now, another thing I really want to highlight here is the art style. I have always been a fan of Naoko Takeuchi's art style. I love how the style is it feels fantastical, and it kind of gentle. It's I guess you could say, if there's one word I could say it would be soft, I think. Not soft as in it's not a harsh style. It's very easy on the eyes. I mean, it's a shoujo manga, and shoujo is a Japanese term that a shoujo manga is a manga that is aimed towards young girls and women. So, of course, the art style has to be pretty in order to appeal to them and help draw them in. I rated both of these volumes 4 stars after I read them. And that's in comparison to like the first few volumes of the Sailor Moon manga. I didn't rate quite as high. I think that's partially to do with the fact that the art style with Codename Sailor V, at least it's very consistent throughout the whole thing. And it doesn't stray from that, and it's later chapters of Sailor Moon are in line with it, but the earlier ones were not. So it was more for the sake of not only how good the art was on the eyes, but also the consistency. Even if the story wasn't quite as good until like the very last couple of chapters of Volume 2, in which there's like a lot of heavy stuff that gets thrown at the reader at once. I will admit part of that rating is my nostalgia, because there's a lot about Sailor Moon as a whole and the entire series, even with the prequel, that it's just, I have that nostalgia for the series. Sailor Moon is my favorite series of all time, so that is going to have a certain degree of effect on how I feel about it. It's definitely not perfect. There are flaws. More like a feeling of the flaws rather than I'm not very good at pointing them out because, again, my nostalgia goggles. But the flaws are there, and I accept them for the way they are, and it's just good, a feel-good series that you can just pick up and do a quick read-through every now and then, and doesn't require a lot of time or effort, and it's kind of nice to have a series like that. Although I said it's not necessarily a required read, I do think if you are a Sailor Moon fan, it is a very good idea to read this. I'm going to stop it here so I don't keep ranting about the same stuff over and over. So, I hope you liked this review of both volumes of Codename Sailor V. Again, both the reviews for the individual volumes are on my Goodreads if you wish to check them out individually. And with that, I would like to thank you all for watching. I post a new video on Tuesdays and Fridays. Have a good one, and I will talk to you later. Bye!